Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming in. I'm going to call this meeting to order. So this is meeting number 8 of the Government Management Committee. Just going to remind everybody there's a screen on the back where you can get a monitor on the meeting, what's been held, what's been moved, and what we're debating. You can also follow it at home at www.toronto.ca/council. We have your green sheets. We have one speaker on 8.4. And from there, we will. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest under the Ontario Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, can I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on October 5th, 2015? Councillor Grimes, all in favor? Carried. So we're just going to run through the agenda. The first two items are timed. The first one, apportionment of property taxes for November 9th, 2015. And the next one is also for 9:45. Number 2, cancellation, reduction, refund of property taxes, November 9th, 2015. Number 3, limited liability of service providers under contracts for benefits, professional services. Councillor Davis, you wanted to hold that? Number 4, city use of social media for civic engagement. We have a deputation. Number 6, contract with Kodak Canada ULC and Spicers Canada ULC for, did I miss one? Sorry. Number 5, use of the province of Ontario vendor of record with Open Text Corporation for the purchase of enterprise information management product and services. Councillor Grimes is moving. All in favor? Carried. Now we're on number 6. Contracts with Kodak Canada ULC and Spicers Canada ULC for the Kodak Digital Next Press printer. I need more coffee. All in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Grimes, sorry. Number 7, professional services for the Ventrac Corporation, Ventrac to support the city's telecommunication and expense management system. Councillor McConnell was going to move it. Okay, Councillor Davis is going to hold that. Number 8, proprietary information, technology, maintenance, and support contracts 2016 to 2020. Councillor Grimes is moving. All in favor? Carried. Number 9, agreement between the City of Toronto and Toronto Hydroelectric System Limited for the use and maintenance of the 900 megahertz P25 technology trunked radio communications system. Councillor Grimes is moving. All in favor? Number 10, update Toronto Hydro's agreement with 311 Toronto for outage emergencies. Councillor McConnell's holding. Sorry? Is Hydro, anybody from Hydro here? Yes, there's people from Hydro here. Number 11, update on the city services benefits card. Councillor Davis. Number 12, award of request for proposal number 0203-15-0067 to Waterford Services for custodial services at various Scarborough locations. Councillor Nunziata is moving number 12. Sorry? Councillor McConnell is holding number 12. Okay. Number 13, a below market rent lease agreement with Regent Park Community Health Center at 38 to number 40 Regent Street. Councillor McConnell is moving number 13. All in favor? Carried. Number 14, renewal of the below market rent agreement with the Women Abuse Council of Toronto at 1652 Keele Street. Councillor Nunziata is moving that. All in favor? Carried. Number 15, renewal of the below market rent lease agreement with Community Action Resource Center at 1652 Keele Street. Councillor Nunziata is moving number 15. All in favor? Carried. Number 16, renewal of the below market rent lease agreement with the Hispanic Community Center for the City of York Hispanic Center at 1652 Keele Street. Okay. Councillor DeGiorgio sent me a communication, said he was okay with it. Oh, okay. Sorry? Okay. He's here now. We'll. Yep. You got questions?
Quick questions.
Okay.
Want to do it now, or do you want to just?
Nope, we'll get to you. Number 17, renewal of below-market rent lease agreement with Community Social Planning Council of Toronto at 1652 Keele Street. Councillor Nunziata is moving number 17. All in favor? Carried. Number 18, expropriation of 13 Barbary Place and 23 Barbary Place. Councillor Grimes is moving. All in favor? Carried. Number 19, expropriation of part of 228 to 230 Queens Quay West and part of the lands at the rear of 250 to 270 Queens Quay West for the reconstruction of the York Bay Yonge off-ramp for the FG Gardner Expressway. All in favor? Are you, sorry, councillors? All carried. Number 20, expropriation of easement for the pedestrian walkway at 500 Dawes Road. Councillor Davis?
I'll move adoption.
All in favor of adoption of number 20? Since it's
I
Councillor
wanted
Davis's
to
ward.
amend it to do something else, but I have a feeling it'll get ruled out of order anyway.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Number 21, amendment to consultant's purchase order number 6037707 for Nathan Phillips Square Revitalization Project.
I'd like to hold it for questions.
Councillor Nunziata is holding number 21. Number 22, St. Lawrence Market Precinct update. Councillor McConnell? Okay, all in favor of receipt of number 2, moved by Councillor McConnell, carried. Number 23, award of request for quotation number 6902-15-3022 to Suncor Energy Products Partnership for various fuel products. Moved by Councillor Grimes, all in favor, carried. Number 24, updating the improving the accuracy of vehicle meter data. Councillor Grimes is moving receipt. All in favor, carried. All righty. It is back to item number 1. Apportionment of property taxes November 9th, 2015. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this item from the public? Anybody from the public that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I have a motion to move. Recommendation number 1 in the report of today from the treasurer, September 15th, 2015, from the treasurer be deleted and replaced with the following. Government Management Committee approve the individual apportionment applications made pursuant to Section 322 of the City of Toronto Act 2006 as provided in the apportionment records marked as Appendix A and Appendix B to the report September 15th, 2015 from the treasurer, excluding the following applications from Appendix A. None for Appendix A, and excluding the following applications from Appendix B. Both are in Ward 42. The first one, 2011 Markham Road, East Side, and Ward 42, 2012 Markham Road, East Side. Any questions of the mover? None. All in favor? Carried. Item is amended. All in favor? Carried. And we're on item number 2, cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes for November 9th, 2015. There is one communication on this item you should have in front of you. Is there anybody in the general public that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none. Okay. I'm going to move the following 2 motions. The recommendation 1 in the report dated October 23rd, 2015 from the treasurer be deleted and replaced with the following. The Government Management Committee approve the individual tax appeal applications made pursuant to Section 323 of the City of Toronto Act 2006 to provide in the detailed hearing report marked as Appendix A to the report October 23rd, 2015 from the treasurer, excluding the following applications. Do I have to read all these? The rest of them are on the screen. Does anybody have any questions of the mover? Counselor Davis, you're good with everything on the screen? Sorry. Excellent. All in favor of the amendment?
Do you want to do number 2 first?
Oh, sorry. And on motion number 2, thank you. Recommendation number 2 in the report dated October 23rd, 2015, from the treasurer be deleted and replaced with the following. The Government Management Committee approved the individual tax appeal applications made pursuant to Section 325 of the City of Toronto Act 2016 as provided in the detailed hearing report marked as Appendix B to the report October 23rd, 2015 from the treasurer, excluding the following applications. Appeal number 201500233 in Ward 19. The property address is 428 Montrose Avenue. Any questions? Nope. All in favor of the motion? Carried. All in favor of both motions? Carried. Item is amended. Carried. Go. We are on deputations. We have one deputation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just on 8.16 that Councilor DeGiorgio wanted me to hold down for him, apparently I'm told now that he's okay with it, so I can release it.
You're good? Okay. I want to hold it now. I need to make amendments. All right, item number 16, renewal of the below-market rent lease agreement with the Hispanic Community Center for the City of York, York Hispanic Center at 1652 Keel Street. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for coming in this morning, Councillor. I think Mr. DiGeronimo, you can thank him for the water if he's still here. Okay. Can I give that back? All righty. Item number 4, city use of social media for civic engagement. We have one listed deputant, Mr. Miroslav Glavich. Steps first. Morning, Mr. Glavich. You have 5 minutes to start whenever you're ready.
Everything the same as before. I haven't been here in a few months. Okay. Yes, I know you. What's it called? 1 second. Where is it? Did you know Mark Grimes blocked me on Twitter? You're breaking my. Yes, you did. Want to bet? You broke my heart. Sorry. Okay. I know. Thank you. You're awesome. You're my favorite after him. So, social media is what the cool kids are doing now. I noticed this morning that the city of Toronto has a new way of. They used to list it all in alphabetical order, now it's categorized. Thank you very much for that. The councillors, you'll have your space, your bio. You could put your social media there. I am not comfortable coming here downtown for anything I need from the city, from anything permits. I use Twitter. I live in Scarborough. It takes me an hour and a half to come here. Councillor Davis does wonderful work with Twitter. I think you're the most active Twitterer. The city. No, you do it. I'm too busy to tweet. You should tweet. Anyways, it's now 2015. Everybody does it. I can get more information from 311 Toronto. A lot faster from my home. I don't have to put a jacket on, take a shower, come down here. You guys have seen this, your page, You councillors should put your social media on your bio. There's over 50 social media. There could be more. And every department should have it. Every city staff should have some kind of social media. Again, it's 2015. You just have to be careful when you tweet, when you have on your phone, your personal and your City of Toronto Twitter, not to tweet the wrong things when you think you're in your personal account. It's doing great job. Please keep up with what you're doing. City of Toronto, there was a poll done. City of Toronto has the best social media from all the city governments across Canada. So we want yay. Thank you.
Any questions for the deputy? Councillor Grimes?
Either. Huh? Thank you. I'm gonna put there. Yeah, no. You're my favorite. Okay. Yeah, no. Thank you. I know. You're my favorite.
Councillor Davis, do you have questions for the deputy?
Sorry, we're talking.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Glavich. Any questions of staff on this item? Speakers on this item? No speakers? Okay. Councillor Davis?
Some departments have Twitter addresses, some do not. And I'm wondering, is there a plan, is there an intention to have every division move to have some kind of social media presence? Or is it just kind of initiated by those who are interested?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are trying to control the amount of Twitter accounts that the city are engaging in, just so the public doesn't have a million places to go for information. So we are trying to stream divisional Twitter accounts into more of our corporate accounts, like the Engage Toronto account or Strategic Communications, unless there is a particular initiative that they need a social media account. So certainly our intent is not to have every divisions have a social media account of the city.
Oh. Okay, so like PFNR has its own, and Transportation has its own, and are you saying those will stop, or you're trying to stop further expansion?
No, I'm not saying that those would stop. Major divisions that have Twitter accounts would continue to have those. What I'm saying is that we don't want a proliferation of social media accounts, which is confusing to the public. So we are trying to ensure that there's coordination across the city with our Twitter accounts so that we're all kind of speaking from one voice.
Is there a place we can go and see a list of the Twitter addresses? Yes?
The link to our Twitter accounts is in the report.
Okay, Twitter. Mind Mixer? Is that it? No, that's a different one. Oh. Okay, I'll find it.
I could give it to you offline, Councillor. It's www.toronto.ca/connect, and then you have a listing of all our social media accounts through that web address.
/connect, where
Right,
is,
Councillor Davis, if you go to the bottom of page 2,
yes,
comments,
yes.
the first line, a list of the
Okay.
cities,
CA.
it's not linked there in the report for some reason. The first line, toronto.ca/e updates. You can go there, and if you go to that link, it has everything.
Okay. Then I will tweet that right now.
And since you're tweeting right now, if you go to the next page in the middle,
Yes, I see.
TorontoMindMixer.com
Yes,
is
what's
it's
that?
like an online suggestion box for residents, which is cool. My kids like it too. There's lots of neat stuff there. Tweet that out too. Yeah.
Too many characters.
Toronto.mindmixer.com.
Okay.
And sorry, does anybody have any questions? I just had one. Podcasts. On the e-update page, the last time we did a podcast was in June. Anybody? I was just wondering why we're not doing more podcasts. You can say you don't know, I'm okay with that too. Somebody will look into it.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely look into it. We did some research on some of the analytics and the use of it. I just don't have that information with me right now, but we can connect with you, Mr. Chair.
Could you email it to me?
Sure.
Or tweet it to me?
Certainly.
Thank you. Okay. Speakers? None? Okay. And I just wanted to remind everybody, as I mentioned earlier, toronto.mindmixer.com. It's more or less an online suggestion box. It's got lots of neat applications in it. And as Councillor Davis is tweeting, you can also go to toronto.ca/ updates, and it gives a full list of all the Twitter, social media, podcasts, Facebook. It's very usable. And I want to thank staff for all their hard work on this. Councillor, who held this? Councillor Davis? Oh, no, Deputy. So motion to receive. All in favor? Carried. Oh, thank you. We're on number 7, professional services for Ventrac Corporation. Oh, sorry, 3. Thank you. Limited liability of service providers under contracts for benefits professional services. Councillor Davis, do you have questions of staff on number 3?
Didn't get to finish my tweet. Yeah, I found this an interesting report. It's the first time I'd heard about concern, and I wondered, do we have absolute unlimited liability on all of our contracts at this point, or have we negotiated variations of that, the extent of our liability?
Through the chair, the standard approach is unlimited liability. There are certain policies that have given some divisions some authority to do limited liability in certain cases, similar to the one to report before you. But the standard approach is actually unlimited, unless we go to council and ask for a specific delegation that's separate on a particular file.
So how do you decide how much liability, and how does it get defined, and?
Through the chair, there is a risk analysis done with, in particular circumstances, showing what the liability might do. For example, there's an actuarial consulting contract that was put out where we didn't get any bidders because of unlimited liability, and TTC and police used $2 million. $2 million is certainly higher than most cases where things can go wrong, but we will do a risk analysis, and there will be a determination as to what the liability should be for us before we go out and put that out.
Okay, so I see. So some could be 1, some could be 10. The size of the contract, the risk. So you will be doing that now on all contracts, or are there certain ones that you know?
Through the chair, this is specifically for
Actuarial.
services for payroll, pensions, and employee benefits.
Right. Now, this is one area, and it sparked a synapse in my brain. And I recall where we did have an actuarial service or a management consultant company that gave us wrong, completely wrong, like $200 million wrong information about our benefits liability or our sick leave plan liability back in 2006. And it was right at the time we were in negotiations. There were lots of impacts as a result of it. And it probably caused the strike, in my view. But in any event, could you talk publicly about what happened there, and did we resolve it? And why would we limit our liability when there's a good example of something that went wrong?
Through the chair, actually, I just happened to come in as Director of Accounting when that was discovered, and there was unlimited liability in the contract at the time. It was settled for an amount that was not unlimited for the amount of our damages, and having something that gives us the ability to limit liability certainly helps us on a go-forward basis with actuaries and with others, because even with an error of that size, it's not as though we were going to bankrupt a business over it, because we only can settle for our actual damages.
I mean, I don't know what the actual damages were and whether you can discuss that settlement publicly, but you can't. Okay.
Could I just add
We could
that
hold it down,
this
I guess.
policy, the proposed policy involves an assessment before the call goes out of the potential risks and the damages that could be incurred by the city if things did go wrong.
So using that last case as an example, if we'd had limited liability as opposed to 100, how do you describe full? Complete, unlimited, yes. Limited versus unlimited. Would it have made any difference in how the matter was resolved in the end?
In this particular case, no, it would not have made any difference.
Through you, Mr. Chair, because we would have done an assessment and established a limit that was reasonable, given what eventualities and what risks and potential costs could have been made.
Is this the
That
same?
limit likely would have been somewhere around what you said before.
And this proposed policy does rely on staff to set the adequate upset limits, as does the one for IT and the one for water and wastewater and others.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering. Well, three things. It's more than just the actuarial contract here. There's 3 contracts. Is that correct?
This report through you, Mr. Chair, deals with just actuarial services on employee pension, benefits.
No, but it's got sign off by water and some other division. I thought,
Through the chair, there are 2 policies out there already. This actually just mirrors those other policies.
oh, I see. Those are ones that were done through council approvals independently.
Correct.
Is this the same contract as the one that I was referring to that gave us incorrect information on our liability?
No, this is a separate contract. That contract included the valuation for accounting purposes as well. This is just for consulting services.
Okay. Is that one still in place?
It has been renewed a few times and was just renewed a few months ago with a separate carrier.
Oh, I was going to say, surely we didn't renew it with the same company. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Speakers? Councillor Davis, did you want to speak? You held it.
Then I'll just move to adopt the staff recommendations, but I think it would be good to keep us informed of those contracts that we're going to use limited liability for, and some evaluation of the experience we have with it, because I think what we've concluded is that we're not getting bidders because of it, and I suppose if we're not getting bidders because of it, we're going to have to respond. However, I trust we're not going to put the corporation at any risk doing this, and that there will be, good judgments made about what level of liability is required. But it does kind of feel like we're conceding a bit. But I'll take your advice and move the staff recommendations.
Thank you. Other speakers? All in favor of the staff recommendations, moved by Councillor Davis. Carried. And now we're on number 7, professional services for the Ventrac Corporation to support the city's telecommunication and expense management system. Councillor Davis held this item. Number 7, Ventrac. Did you have questions of staff?
Well, it's a non-competitive procurement, and I guess maybe you can just quickly say why.
Sure. Through the chair, Councillor Davis, this is a particular software solution that was procured in 2006, and it's our telecommunications expense management system. The particular package that was procured is only offered by the vendor. This report is seeking authority because we have some minor modifications to make to this particular system, and this is the only vendor that can make that change.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions of staff on this item?
Maybe just one. When we get into a unique contract or where something is designed for us or we've invested a certain amount, how do we sort of get off the treadmill of being always reliant on one vendor in certain IT situations?
Through the chair, that's a great question. And where we can, depending on how the solution was created, in some cases, we may have access to some parts of the solution so that we can make modifications. In other cases where it's really proprietary and they limit that access, we're kind of stuck. But where we can, we've tried to identify the necessary skills and tool sets that allows us to be able to make those changes, and we try to do that. In some cases, again, just based on the offering, we're somewhat limited to the product or service offering from the...
Like GroupWise, for instance.
Yes.
How did, I mean, GroupWise is, I think, a good example. You invest a certain amount and then you just have to keep upgrading. Do we have any other, this is a bit off topic, I'm sure, but
Okay.
are there other systems like that where we're invested in SAP?
Yeah, through the chair, we have a significant portion of our portfolio that we're dependent on the vendor, and that's why we have maintenance and support agreements. But really, to your question, what we try to do is negotiate and establish contractual agreements that some of these changes are included in our maintenance and support agreement. So we're not necessarily, shall we say, leaving an open window so that every time we have to make a change, we don't know how much that may cost, or we can somewhat proactively manage those limits. But a lot of the enterprise class software solutions, that's an industry standard model, and the reality is that's how some of them make their revenue streams, by locking you into their particular product. And it's, again, supply and demand. If there's only a certain amount of products available to meet our functional needs, we end up making selections and, again, do our best to negotiate terms and conditions to our advantage. But sometimes we are, let's say, at the mercy of the product offering.
Mm-hmm. And in a corporation this size, being at the mercy of has a huge cost attached to it, potentially. So there must be other big governments and corporations that have looked at this, how to maintain competitiveness in this kind of environment where you've got huge contracts.
Yes, again, through the chair, absolutely, and we've got to weigh off. When you make that investment, you also pass on the accountability and the responsibility and the associated workload with maintaining those solutions. So it's not just strictly we're just paying for the sake of paying. We're buying a solution which then they're responsible for making sure it's operational to meet our needs. And so what we try to do, again, is focus in on what best meets the city's functional requirements at the best price points. And so we look across the spectrum, right from the enterprise class type solutions to some of the smaller, newer solutions, and again, try to focus on what is the functionality that we need and what is the best cost model, not only now, but also moving forward for the city.
And is it possible, I know that it's going to come up in the next item I held, number 11, that we are in cooperation with the provincial government in big
Yes.
contracts? I know that telephony contract at one point was kind of piggybacked onto a provincial contract.
Yeah.
Are there a bunch of others?
Again, through the chair, we do look at opportunities where the provincial government has put in a clause that allows us to leverage the agreements that they've put in place. And again, where it makes sense from us from a functional and cost perspective, we definitely explore those options.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Item 5 is such an item where we'll use the province's vendor of record. I believe we did it with our Microsoft licenses this year as well. We used a VOR. So we'll look at different ways of acquiring things to try to see which is the lowest cost.
Do you have another question? Okay. Any other questions of staff? I had a couple. I just wanted to ask, and I'm not sure who can answer this. So number 7, why it's different from the contracts that we just approved in number 8? Why they wouldn't be together in number 8?
To the chair, yes, it is a good question. The way that we've categorized this particular offering is under the category of professional services versus the other ones are under a maintenance and support agreement. And so when you acquire certain software, you pay a certain maintenance and support agreement that entitles you to a certain amount of upgrades, fixes, et cetera. In this particular case, because it's a custom design solution from this vendor, again, for a telecommunications expense management system, those changes would be made through a professional services agreement. And so what we've had to do is seek the authority so that any sort of changes that we may have over the next 5 years to meet some of our needs, whether it's around our billing needs, accounting needs, et cetera, as we modify the system, it would be through professional services.
Okay. And similar, I guess, what Councillor Davis was asking, when we originally signed this contract with Ventrac, and I assume it went out by RFP, and so and the life cycle's till 2020. Do we monitor or do we keep track of, so back in 2006, I think, when we signed up with Ventrac, and we've renewed it a couple of times, or, software updates to it, do we do some type of tracking to say, okay, this is what it originally cost, by 2020, this is what it cost with all the upgrades? Do we get a good deal do we get a good bang for our buck compared to if we'd gone out and taken one of the other bids way back in 2006? Do we do anything like that, or any tracking like that?
I'm going to try and answer your question maybe in a couple ways. We're always looking to make sure that in terms of value investment, and that has required that we go back and look at our initial investments and continually evaluate if we're still getting the right benefits for the City of Toronto. In this particular case, we've initiated a separate project outside of this to really look at if this is still the right business model and right solution for us. What do I mean by that? This particular system manages, the city has 15,000 mobile devices. It manages the devices, the assets, when they come for renewal, et cetera, all the billing associated with it. We have a project right now where we're looking at, instead of a system managing that, perhaps there's a service out there and there are companies that offer that service. Maybe that's a better business model for us. So to your question, yes, we procured this solution in 2006. Yes, it's worked for us to this point, but is it the right solution moving forward? We're currently going through that analysis. And in that analysis, you're right, we will take a look at the investment we've made in the past and to the present, and does it make sense that we go forward with that type of solution, or should we go with a service offering where there are companies in the industry that provide that service, and we would buy that service from those companies. Now, we would have to go through a competitive process in terms of selecting a company to provide that service, but that's the kind of thing that we do with our solutions.
And then, does it monitor, you talked about wireless devices and landlines. Does it monitor the landlines, like in my constituency office, for example, the phones? Or is that outside?
Again, through your chair, it monitors in terms of our landlines that are part of our asset inventory. When I say asset inventory, when we moved our telecommunications or our telephone system to a voice over IP solution, we then took over the management of those landlines. We have a mixture. The majority of our landlines at the city are through voice over IP, and they would be tracked in this system. We do have some telephones out there that are still on traditional Bell Centrex lines. So depending on your constituency office, I actually don't know which one you're on for that particular office. If it is on our voice over IP solution, it would be managed through the system. If we're still getting that service through Bell, then it would not be in here.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Meikle. Councillor Davis?
So a couple of years ago, the Auditor General did a report on cell phone accounts, and that there were many, as I recall, floating out there sort of unaccounted for. And if this is a management system, is it intended to address any of those concerns that, or will address any of the issues raised by the Auditor General?
Through the chair, great question. That Auditor General's report that you're referring to, that actually triggered when I was speaking to the chair about a project that we're doing at looking at our existing system and whether we want to develop solution or buy a service. That project has been initiated to address those Auditor General requirements. We've done some of them through process, right, in terms of just process, information sharing, accountability, all those kind of things. But now we're trying to look at, is there a system that can assist with that management so we can reduce the administrative load on division heads and management team, so somewhat all of that becomes automated.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Speakers? Sorry, Councillor Nunziata, did you have?
No, I was just going to move the recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Davis held it.
No, I'm fine to just.
You're fine? Okay, Councillor Nunziata is going to move the recommendations. All in favor? Carried. Number 10, an update on Toronto Hydro's agreement with 311 Toronto for outage emergencies. Councillor McConnell held it. Councillor, do you have questions of staff? Okay.
So this comes out of a lot of miscommunication that happened in and around both the ice storm as well as the flooding that occurred, the major flooding that occurred. And coming out of that, we asked for a report on how to tailor customer calls and around outages or about, sort of time that they might be serviced or whatever. And I think I understood that we were going to try and make sure that 311 was the central contact. And that's not what I see here.
Through you, Mr. Chair, maybe I'll start. I don't think the intention was ever for us to be the central contact, but to improve communication, and Gary will explain.
Through the chair, I actually agree with that particular initiative. The premise was to improve accountability, ownership, and clarity around lines of communication to our residents, and make sure there was a tighter relationship between Toronto Hydro and 311. Through the initial development of an MOU, that has been established for major outages. So we had 26 major outages last year.
Yes.
And during that time, we were able to average a service level around 80.3%. So in terms of that service level and accountability, that's been there. There was an additional ask about 2 months ago to us to look at minor outages and to make sure that we've adjusted that.
Yes.
The MOU has been updated to reflect that. And as of to date, any outage that's related to at a transformer level or greater,
Yes.
we're automatically notified now. So for example, I could play you a notification that we get through their IVR right now on
Yes.
any outage. The good thing about that is we know it from a ward perspective and also from a heat map perspective now. So when a resident calls in, they can call about their specific area. We now have access to their map. And through the intelligent IVR provided through Toronto Hydro, what their organization receives, we receive it in real time as well. So there's a clear accountability in the line of, or greater focus on customer service and clarity around the information, real-time information as well. That's been established. And one thing that we do want to offer as well, jointly with 311 and Toronto Hydro, is to meet with council and show the heat map and the process and make sure you're more familiar with that process going forward. And we'll do that upon your availability as well.
So that's great, but I still am trying to figure out how people access this information. And I think, if I could, that most people call 311. And so that was where all of this started, because when they called 311, 311 were not able to connect or figure out connection with Hydro. So I get that now that's changed, but is it the expectation that people would call another number other than 311 when there's an outage?
No, they have through the chair, sorry, they still have the option of going through 311 or to Toronto Hydro directly. That message will be the same. The biggest thing is we want to make sure that message is consistent and it's clear. And we've put some processes in place and also a stronger management framework on a monthly basis that ensures consistency of that message. And if there's any anomalies, we address it in real time.
So what I'm not understanding, and I really not understanding it, is that we have two parallel systems. And I think that that's, in our discussions, that after the ice storm, that was the piece that we were trying to avoid. And, but it looks to me as if Toronto Hydro, I get the kind of overall piece of information. What I don't get is that people are still being encouraged to call two different numbers, and that's not making any sense to me.
Respectfully, through the chair, one of the things that we want to make sure is we have a clear delineation from 311 across all divisions between Tier 1 calls and Tier 2 calls.
Yes?
And the Tier 1 calls would be just a general inquiry around outages. We definitely have a process in place now to deal with that. There's still some functionality behind the Tier 2 calls and the more complex issues that are dealt with Toronto Hydro that 301 would not be able to take over. And I can look at multiple examples with multiple divisions where there's a clear demarcation between the Tier 1, which is more of a generalist kind of inquiry or service request, versus a more complex issue via Tier 2. So they would still need to have that desk to deal with Tier 2 options or issues.
Right. Okay. So I call 311. I get the answer from 311, or I'm put through to Hydro, depending on the complexity, or is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. So when I call 311 about roads, I'm put through to transportation, and if I call about service in recreation, I'm put through to Parks and Rec. So I get that piece. That makes sense to me. What I don't understand is how much of a duplication is happening at Hydro. So maybe my questions are to Hydro, and thank you for coming. So how many people do you have on that desk?
Depending on the type of outage you're referring to. So large-scale outages, we can have up to 80 agents at any given time manning the phones to deal with outage inquiries. But on a regular type of day, it would be 3 to 5 on average.
Okay, so could I'm just not quite understanding this. So generally, you only have 2 to 5, which is, okay, that's fine. That's more like one of our departments. But when you have an emergency, you then staff up the desk as opposed to using 311. Why is that?
Customers contacting Toronto Hydro regarding outages, first of all, if there's wire down emergencies, there's specific key information that we need, more of a technical nature that has to be dealt with. Also through our IVR, there's the availability to enter an outage ticket that goes right into our OMS system. Now 311 has the option of having their agents do that online or transferring into our system to log the outage requirement and tickets. But in a large-scale event, what we do is we have our customer service call center agents handle the vast volume of outage calls that we receive. We also have a third-party contracted message IVR service for very large-scale events. And we've updated our IVR to increase the capacity so there aren't the issues that Toronto residents experienced during the ice storm where they weren't able to get through to our IVR.
Correct. That was part of the big problem. So your customer service desk, are you saying that that's a contracted out service?
Pardon me?
Is it a contracted out service?
Yes.
Ah, and where's the headquarters?
It's not, it's a message service. It's an IVR. It's not live answer.
Ah, And where's that contracted out to?
It's an agency called 21st Century Communications.
And where are they located?
They're in the United States.
In the United States.
They're known for handling outage communications. They deal with the vast majority of electric company, or LDCs in the United States, along with 911.
Well, I'll leave it at that, but that was the problem. It was always the problem. And it became a very serious problem when people couldn't get through, when they couldn't leave messages, when they couldn't do whatever. And when we had a perfectly good message system that was being handled by staff members of our city. And, I find it unbelievable. So I've said it, that's it. It was what I wanted to get at, and so thank you.
And just in closing through the chair, one thing we want to make it very clear is that from a customer service perspective to our residents, and there's other dynamics we could talk about on or offline, but to our residents and making sure that they're properly serviced, we have the data that shows since we put these particular initiatives in place,
Yes.
we're hitting our service levels at 80%. So in terms of making sure we control that message and make sure it's clear, we were making sure that that joint relationship between Toronto Hydro and 311 provides the proper service to our residents. Now, the other things that definitely we could talk offline and have greater details, conversations.
Yes, and no, I appreciate that, and I think that that's the proof in the pudding, that actually we could have managed it, except that Hydro had a different idea, and always did. And that was a very big problem during the ice storm. Thank you.
Okay, and sorry, and just on a point of order, I just want to clarify, so Mr. Gary York is the head of our 311, he's new since the ice storm.
No, I understand.
Okay. And he's doing a great job.
And 311 does a great job.
Yes, they do.
A lot of money put it in place for all our agency boards and commissions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Davis, you had questions?
The chart that lays out, I guess it's, well, there's two. Customer experience on page 3, customer experience improvements completed and customer experience items in progress. Is there a way that you've said the benefits are improved. Is there a way to measure, and are you measuring those improvements?
We are measuring it in terms of, and right now it's a manual endeavor because the systems aren't interlinked to each other. But what we're looking at is, for example, we all know when a major, at this point in time, we did the investigation via major outages. So there were approximately 22 major outages since we've established this particular agreement between the two parties. What we've done is correlate the time of the activities to the service level in terms of response times to our residents. And so with that data, we were able to come up with 80.3 in terms of showing the correlation between that service level and the impact of that outages. So so it tells us that we're going in the right direction. Now what we wanted to do was, right now it's only major. Now it's minor outages that we want to make sure that there's a correlation there as well. So we're looking to track that. And for example, I could play you if you wish, but we actually have, and sometimes it's inundating the 311, but every time there's now a hit at the transformer level, we're made aware. And I'd rather have more information than less information. That's our job to decipher it to make sure that we have the right message to our residents. So with the information, the joint effort between Toronto Hydro and 311, we are getting better information, and we're able to respond to these inquiries, and including council as well, from a ward perspective. So we actually have that data. So what I would ask respectfully is, if we can have that meeting, which we can show and demonstrate that process, based upon your availability, we'll be able to maybe increase the level of confidence with this particular initiative.
So that's quite reassuring, actually. So on the things that are in progress, are they all going to be completed according to the anticipated or projected timelines?
Through the chair at this point in time, there are no expectations of any delays. This is an urgent thing for the city. They want to make sure that we track it and show their associated improvements.
Now, the chair may rule it out of order, but I'll argue it's in order. We had similar experiences with the water, big storm and the pipe freezing, the pipe freezes last 2 years. And there were definitely problems between what 311 was doing and how it was linking and sharing information or with Toronto Water. Or what information was being provided by 311 versus what was being provided by Toronto Water. Have you made improvements there as well?
Through the chair, absolutely, 100%.
Oh,
I'm very confident of that, and the reason why we've been doing workshops since
I know we had SWAT teams, but SWAT teams were an immediate response to the incredible congestion is the only thing I can think to describe what was happening in terms of getting accurate information to residents about when and what was going to be done at their homes.
And through the chair, you're absolutely correct. And what we've done after that is we've actually had mini task force that actually polled 311 and all the members of the SWAT initiative as well to find out lessons learned and best practices.
Great.
Yeah, on top of that, we're also on the 19th having another meeting just to make sure we close the loop on that.
Great. I'd love to learn more about that. So when we meet, I'd love to hear about that too.
Absolutely.
And keep our fingers crossed that it'll be a milder winter.
Good. Other questions of staff? None? So I have my list from, so Toronto Hydro, we're going to get their information now for smaller scale outages on a regular basis?
Correct.
Hourly?
Correct.
Correct?
Correct. So we put two processes in place. One is updates hourly and also from the heat map every 15 minutes. So we have two ways of making sure we have the information. So it's really, at this point in time, more is the better at this point in time. We want to make sure it's accurate.
So that's the next thing on my list. The TO online map refreshed how often?
It's refreshed every 15 minutes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's any new information every 15 minutes, but it goes into our outage management system and pulls any new information every 15 minutes.
Okay. And then there's also the website, http://outageto.com. Is that different?
It's a mobile application, and it has the outage map on it, but it also gives customers extensive information about what to do during an outage, before an outage, just all emergency preparedness information. It's got the live Twitter feed is in there. And
So the communication's a lot clearer.
The online reported outage application.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any speakers on this? No? Okay. I'm just going to thank staff, 311, and everybody involved in this, getting this information from Toronto Hydro, because, from the ice storm and even when we have outages on a street in our particular wards, I sit on the board of Toronto Hydro as well. It's not always, if you have power outage on a street, it's not always a big deal for Toronto Hydro, but it's certainly a big deal when you've got a family or seniors. It's winter, the weather's bad, and you want to know when your power is coming back on. I want to thank you for all your work on this. So we will move the recommendations on this report. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item is number 11, update on the city services benefits card. Councillor Davis, you held it?
Mr. Chair, there is a confidential attachment to this, so I wouldn't mind having both public and private questions if we.
Okay, so do you want to move this one to the last item?
Yes.
Okay. So number 12, award of request for proposals for Waterford services for custodial services at various Scarborough locations. Councillor McConnell, you held this?
Yes, I did. I just had one very simple question. So I understand that these were already contracted out services. I also understand from recent events that have happened in other places, particularly at the airport and other places, that the workers that are in these companies are not being transferred in. So am I correct that every time we put a contract out and someone else bids on it, and wins it, that the workers all change. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I cannot say in every single time what might happen, but they're responsible to follow what we usually refer to as Bill 7, which deals with Employee Standards Act.
Yes.
And that they would have to either, if it's a new vendor coming in, they would have to pick up or offer compensation to those that they're not picking up with respect to those that were in the previous contract. If it's the same vendor, then there's no change at all.
But this one's a different vendor, isn't it?
No, it's the same vendor.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was my mistake, and that's why I held it and asked the question. Okay, so we have the same vendor, so we have the same workers, so we don't have that precarious, well, we have precarious employment, and we've had no challenges on, at the Labor Relations Board, we've had no concerns about fair wage, we've had none of that. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. That was, those are my questions. Yes, well, they would answer. I was looking at him. I can now see him.
I'm sorry, can you repeat? I just got in. Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. Sorry. So the question was around Waterford, and I misunderstood. When I read it, I thought that Waterford was not the vendor of record, but it turns out that they were. So my question was, with regards to all of these various Scarborough locations and this particular contract, have we had, over this particular period of time of the contract, any issues around fair wage?
No.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Other questions of staff on this item? Councillor Davis?
So Scarborough is the only area of the city that has contracted out cleaning services. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And why are we still doing that?
It's more cost effective.
And we evaluate the effectiveness of contracted out services there?
Yes.
So I could get some evaluation information from you.
We can certainly share it offline, yes.
Now, I don't know the details in camera, whether we need to go into camera, but I do want to know what the rates of pay, thank you. I do want to know what the rates of pay are being paid under this contract.
Through the chair, just with respect, the in-camera presentation talks about the evaluation process and the scores with respect to that. But all the Waterford is required and agreed to pay at least the fair wage rate, and if they have a collective agreement, that would be what prevails over the fair wage rate.
And we put in place some other sort of best practices for caretaking services. As I recall, there was going to be a new approach using a model of, I forget what you call it, where you time you allocate a certain amount of time for functions, cleaning functions and so on. Is that happening in this contract? It was called you came to us with a new model for contracting out. One of them was for cleaning services. Are you using that here?
So I'll go through the chair. The intent is it is going to be used for this particular contract also.
So could you explain that a bit?
It's really around the activities regarding the custodial work that gets done, whether, it's cleaning in specific areas, so it's very much activity-driven based on time. So that's what we've actually put in place within the facility side, and this contract would also leverage this.
Okay, so as I recall, at the school board, we used this model, and
it's a common practice
system. It said in a school you would spend X number of time, and believe me, it was not a very accurate assessment of how much time needed to go to different things, but, so you will be, that must have been a lot of work. So you've put together all of the best, how much time will be allocated to each of the functions for cleaning a community center, field house, whatever. Yes?
Through the
Maybe I
chair-
should ask Anne. I'm sure that PFNR must have developed it.
Sorry, can I speak to that? Sorry, so there's 59 locations plus 2 culture locations that are part of this RFP. And for every location, there's a task list of cleaning duties and hours of work for each location. So for most locations, we have staff from 7 in the morning until midnight and broken into 2 shifts. And during those shifts, the duties are broken down for each of those staff.
And how much time is weighted or allocated to each of those functions? Yeah. Yeah. I notice you use the word staff. And have we ever examined the relationships in these buildings to the cleaner, to the, like, is it do they operate like a normal staff to manager relationship?
No, they're a contract in the building, and they have their own supervisors that manage the contract, and we liaise with the manager or supervisor of Waterford Services.
So I can get information, you evaluated Waterford Services and how well they performed the contract last time?
Yeah.
And you've got concrete data you could share with us? And you have something from their last term, their last contract. And what is the term of this contract? How many years is it? 2 years?
It's 3 years plus an option to extend 2 more.
Okay. And just finally, what were the elements of this new, other than the approach to timed contract services, or a new way to evaluate? There were some other provisions about best practices in contracts that we were going to put into all the new cleaning contracts.
Through the chair, we added that they had to be a member of the various organizations, and then the winning vendor would have to achieve ISSA SIMS GB standard in each of the facilities, which is something which is site-specific, within 12 months of getting the contract. They also had to, indicate compliance with statutory health and safety and provide us their policies. And then they, of course, have to agree to the new fair wage rates that we had put in place at the same time as this, when we did all these items for custodial.
And they meet the fair wage rates?
That's correct.
Are they unionized?
Last question, Councillor.
Yes, they are unionized. They're members of LIUNA Local 183.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions of staff on this item? Speakers? Somebody to move the recommendations? Councillor
Sad
McConnell's
that we
moving.
are contracting out.
All in favor of the recommendations, moved by Councillor McConnell. Carried. Our next item is GM 8.21, amendment to consultants purchase order number 603-7707 for Nathan Phillips Square. Councillor Nunziata, you held this item?
Yes, just a question. Guess all this work is going to be done by the end of 2015, eh?
That's correct.
Yeah. But I just want to know that if we knew that there was going to be an additional cost for the consultant, why it wasn't included and why it's being increased now.
So through the chair, it's not additional to the budget. It's part of the reconciliation that we have with any contractor at the end of a project. So this is within the overall budget of Nathan Phillips Square revitalization of 60.4. So it's not additional. It's just a reconciliation that we have to do with all contractors to finalize as we're at substantial completion of the actual project.
But it's here for approval.
Yes, because within my signing authority, I am not able to sign this. I have to bring it to committee to sign. That's the reason for it.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Counselor Davis?
So, just for the public record,
Yep.
the original budget and the final costs, many of the projects the project started out initially as a grand vision as a result of a design competition.
That's correct.
And then council said, well, we don't really want to pay for that. Isn't that what happened?
Council requested that, this was a few years back, that we look at different sponsors.
Right, that we were to go out and get private sector
Right,
funders.
and that did
was
not
the vision.
happen.
Right. So this sort of was this notion, like in Chicago, at, what's the famous Chicago public realm?
Navy Pier.
No, not Navy Pier. The big.
Millennium Park.
Millennium Park. So, but that didn't happen. So then we parceled it out, did we not, in phases?
We had 4 phases, you're correct.
Right. So instead of being done quickly and with full funding, it got kind of parceled off and done over time.
We also had unforeseen situations that we encountered, whether it was weather-driven or actual infrastructure issues that we would not have known at that point in time. So I don't think it was just phased for the sake of
Right.
phasing it. It was based on conditions that we had to deal with.
Right, there were some extraordinary, unanticipated contingencies that we had to deal with.
That's correct.
Plus, there was, work had to stop I think it was last winter or the winter
We
before.
had a bad winter. And we had to actually defer work, as we brought that to council too. We've
Right.
deferred work.
Right. And we will be finished.
We will be finished at the end of the year. The only element that we are not able, it'll be work done because we have to put a barricade around the eternal flame. We will not be actually lighting the flame until the spring as a ceremonial requirement. That's it.
Okay.
There will always be state of good repair work that we do, so we should all differentiate between revitalization. But what we are going to do for the purposes of this building and for staff and council is give people communication as to what's going on so there's no surprises, so there's no misconceptions.
And lastly, I also recall that a good portion, like 60 or 70% of the scope of the work being done was state of good repair. Isn't that not the case? The ramps, various elements.
I'd say that there was state of good repair in there. I don't know if it's 60 to 70%. It'd be something a lot lower than that because
I
there
thought
was.
about 16 million I have in my head.
There was work that we did about, let's say, $10 to $12 million. I'm not sure it would be 60 or 70%. But there was some work, you're absolutely right. Because of the revitalization project, we had about 60 million. A portion was revitalization. There was about 8 to 10 million of SOGR, to your point.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Few questions. At the last meeting, we decided not to go forward with a restaurant. And so that area is to be redone. And so is that included in here?
This work, it's SLGR work that we're going to be looking at. It's not part of this particular phase.
Yes.
What we're doing here is we're actually going to relook at how we actually make that more of a public space area and obviously tidy it up, but do something a little bit different.
Yes.
And we do have some feedback from the advisory committee for Nathan Phillips Square to look at it with the academic side, to look at some competition with the academics. So we may be looking at something like that as part of the process, which would be, I think, would be ideal in bringing some of the academics to look at this space.
Right. And so when would we expect that will not be done by the end of the year? So when would we expect that would be?
That would be done next year in the spring to summer timeframe, and we would be, part of our communication out on City Hall or Nathan Phillips Square would be including that.
Right. And the Peace Garden is entirely up, running, and completed?
The Peace Garden's complete. The only element that we're finishing is the actual fencing around the eternal flame right now.
Yes.
And that will be a ceremony done in the spring of next year. But it does require a lot of work and effort to put that in place.
Yes, so I was just going to ask about the ceremony because it really demands a ceremony.
It absolutely does, and it will. We will, and we're working with the actual advisory panel around that and economic development.
Great. And there's one other question. So, so we have the area where the restaurant was, I don't know how to call it. But we also have some other ramp work that has to still be done, is that correct?
There is some work to be done, and some of it's part of the SOGR program going forward.
And, sorry, and when is the, so if 16 is now doing the restaurant, when's the ramp work and the ceremonial area going to be completed?
The ceremonial area, the Eternal Flame, will be done by spring of next year. All the work will be done, physically will all be done, it's just the actual ceremony itself. Now, the ramp work that you're referring to, I don't have it with me, but it's either in the 2017 or 2018 plan, and I can bring that back to you, Councillor,
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
And then the, what do you call them? The walkways. Has that been resolved yet with the hotel?
Are we talking about the Sheridan Hotel?
Yes.
We're working with the Sheridan Hotel, and there has been a lot of work done with the engineering side. So we actually are having a meeting in the next, I'd say in a very short period of time regarding this specific element to decide whether it's going to be state of good repair on their side or actually taking the actual leverage down.
Yes.
So we're working through that. That's still on the horizon.
So, so those things will be reported through as we complete? So when we say it's completed by the end of the year, we mean what's completed by the end of the year was the things that,
Part of the scope of the
project itself,
revitalization.
not these additional things
No,
that we need to have done anyway. Okay.
That's correct. But through communications, we will be bringing that forward because I think it's important that everybody understands that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Grimes, did you have a question?
Councilor McConnell asked a question about the Sheridan.
Okay. So, Ms. Seoli, I just wanted, the only work left done out there to be completed is the Peace Gardens and the flame, which we're going to light in the spring?
That is one, at the end of the year, so let's just, I'm going to partition this. There's two things going on the actual square right now that you'll be seeing. There will be the furniture that will be brought in. That was part of the requirement. We had to wait till Pan Am will come in by the end of November. November 20th, I've been told, so very soon. And then we're doing some work on the actual stage itself right now because we have some maintenance work that we're doing there, but that will be complete ASAP. So that's really what's being done. And the ceremonial next year, everything else is complete. But SOGR work outside of that we'll always do.
And
So yes. Now the question is, there has been a lot of questions around when we're going to get done. It will be done this year. Our budget does not extend past this year. We're done.
Okay, and the penny pinching Scottish part of me, that's, in the report it says the project is within budget. Is it under budget?
We're still doing the final reconciliation. Right now, it's within the plan, and a few cents here and there, that's about it. That's all I know at this point. They're doing further reconciliation. We will not be coming back for further money at all.
Right. Right, so, and any other work that we see out there is state of good repair, much like is
And we
being done
have
on the
stuff
stage
already in
right now.
26, 2017 plans already, so that's just part of a 10-year plan that we work through.
So one thing I think is important for everybody to understand, it's still a 50-year-old square, that work is going to proceed regular
matter
state
what.
of good repair on a 50-year-old.
I just want to be clear, because there's no media here, so just if they are listening, they
No,
understand.
And I think what's very important for us, and it's a big learning, I think, for the last 7 years, I don't know, it's been a long time, it's to make sure communication's out there on a regular basis so there's no miscommunication. That's our job to do that.
Right, okay, thank you. Councillor McConnell, or sorry, Councillor Nunziata held this item. Councillor Nunziata is moving the recommendations. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And then we are going back. Councillor Davis, you had questions in public on number 11?
Just to sort of set the context, so this
Or do you
is-
need to go in camera?
I do want to go into camera.
Okay. All right, so we'll do the public questions first.
Okay. So this card that we have, hold on. How long have we had this in place?
Through the chair, we've had the card since 2012.
And the provincial government is proposing to establish their own. In fact, your report sounds like it's imminent. 2016 or 2017?
Yes, the province will be implementing a province-wide solution via a card for ODSP clients for 2016 and for OW clients in 2017.
And our card has been successful, and we've done it independently. We're using, so are you aware of the functionality of the proposed provincial card?
Through the chair, the development is still underway with the province, so we wouldn't be totally aware of the functionality. But with the recommendations that we're making today, we hope to influence and drive the development with the in relation to the provincial card. So it gives us kind of a pilot test prior to going to the final solution.
Say that again? We're hoping to pilot test?
No, I'm comparing it to a pilot test because we would be doing it in our own environment with the same provider. So therefore, we would help to influence the long-term solution of the province of Ontario.
Okay, we are going to say, here, we've got this already, we've done it. Why don't you use ours and extend it province-wide? It's kind of the idea?
Yes, we're helping with the specifications, et cetera.
Okay. And are there any improvements you would make on what we currently are using that you would request the provincial government to consider?
No, we're very satisfied with the current card. Okay. The report today is about the provider of the card, not the functionality of the card.
Right. Now, we've had some experience with the provincial introduction of new technologies. One that comes to mind pretty quickly is SAMS. And we've had some significant impact on our division and its operations as a result of the provincial SAMS system. Is that correct?
I would term that as correct. Certainly, we have made sure that the impacts have not been felt by clients. We continue to pay on time and in the correct amounts clients, but at the cost of some operational areas in terms of where we had to redeploy our resources, the administrative efficiency, et cetera.
And actual cost, is that?
Yes, if we were to, the actual costs have escalated a bit. We did lose some efficiencies with this system.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Other questions of staff? Speakers?
I do want to speak, but I thought we were going to go.
Sorry, yes, we're going in camera. So I need a motion to go in camera. Sorry, that the Government Management Committee recess its public session to meet in closed session to consider this item as it relates to the security of the city or local board's property. All in favor?
You should vote.
Opposed? Anybody opposed? No, carried. All right, so we're going in camera. So any staff, members of the public, you have to leave the room for the next portion of this meeting, and any city staff that are not involved in this item as well also have to leave. And we have to come back into public after this and move the bills. Thank you. You gonna leave? Okay.
As soon as I began to read this report, and it was another system in which we were going to be essentially mandated to adopt some other provincial system, it made me think of SAMS, the Social Assistance Management system that has been so challenging, and I don't believe we've had any report here on what the impact of that system has been. And so this is a report request to find out what the impact of and I would amend it by putting in the Ontario Social Assistance Management System on the City of Toronto's Employment Social Services, and the report would be report to the January Government Management Committee. I know that there has been lots of overtime. I know that the system itself has had its challenges, and I think it would be, there's been a recent provincial auditor, I think it's an Auditor General's report, and I think it would be useful for us to understand, as the biggest system and largest administrator of the SAMS operations, to have a report here.
Other speakers? No? Okay. I just want to thank staff for all their work on this. You know, we were talking about the poverty reduction strategy last week. I couldn't get everything into my 5 minutes of talking that I wanted to, but this is something that I certainly wanted to highlight. You know, I'm very proud that I brought this forward last term as the chair of the Government Management Committee. I can remember funding it on Twitter, actually. I think it was in Sweden, where they were doing something similar and brought this forward. Because, you know, when you look at people that are at the lowest rung of the ladder, that need help, that don't have an address, or, you know, I've had families come up and thank me on the street for this, because, you know, single mothers with children that have trouble with their banks, or, you know, they're moving and don't have an address, and the checks or the, you know, the mail doesn't get to them. And, you know, to have this card in place, you know, is a huge benefit for them. They're not going to check cashing places and being hit every month for $100 in check cashing fees, which, you know, if you're a single mother with kids, trying to get by, $100 a month, you know, for the average person, it's not a lot of money. But for somebody in their position, $100 is a huge amount of money. So I want to thank staff in particular for all the work that they've done on this card. I know that they've received awards for it. You know, on one level, I kind of laughed that when this card was put in place, the provincial government was kind of putting up their hands going, you know, crazy idea, never going to work in Toronto. Other municipalities, I've brought it up at FCM. I've been at other meetings with other municipalities, and they've all been like, never going to work. And those same municipalities in the province are now looking at putting their own in place. And even somebody I talked to at the federal government was looking at doing something very similar, because they look at the ease of the system, the amount of money that gets saved both on the government side and by the individuals. So I think it's a great program. I'm glad it's working. There are a few issues, as we discussed in camera, but that's certainly not at our side. And I want to thank staff once again for all their hard work on this. Thank you. So all in favor of the recommendations? Oh, sorry, and the amendment? All in favor? Item is amended. All in favor? Councillor Grimes, you have a confirming bill?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Government Management Committee passed and declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Government Management Committee acting under delegated authority at its meeting on November 9th, 2015.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Carried. And thank you, everybody, for coming in this morning. And clerk staff for all your hard work as usual. Thank you very much, ladies.